There comes a point in every woman's life where silence becomes strength and solitude becomes the classroom where she learns who she truly is. The season of rebuilding is never easy. It's filled with tears that no one sees, prayers whispered through exhaustion, and choices that require courage she didn't know she had. But it's in that solitude that God shapes her again. The woman who rebuilds herself alone isn't weak. She's a warrior being refined. Her pain becomes her power, her faith becomes her fuel, and her scars become proof that grace can rewrite any story. When life has broken her down, she learns not to wait for rescue, but to rise with resilience, trusting that what's being rebuilt in secret will shine in public. This message is for every woman who's starting over, standing firm, and discovering that the most unstoppable version of herself is being born in the very place she thought she was finished. There is a kind of strength that doesn't make noise. It doesn't announce itself or demand attention. It's the strength that grows quietly when no one is watching, when the lights are off and the applause has faded. Rebuilding yourself in solitude is not about isolation, it's about rediscovery. It's in those moments when you are forced to sit with your own thoughts, your own pain, and your own past that you realize how powerful stillness can be. Solitude isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's where you learn to listen again, not to the world, but to the still, small voice reminding you that broken does not mean finished. When a woman begins to rebuild herself alone, she steps into a sacred process. Everything familiar may have fallen apart, relationships, plans, dreams, confidence. But what remains is her. She's standing in the middle of what feels like ruins, holding fragments of who she used to be. And yet, somewhere deep inside, there's a whisper that says, "Start again." That whisper is divine. It's a signal that life isn't over, it's being rewritten. In solitude, she learns to separate who she truly is from who she was told to be. She sheds the labels, the doubts, the fear, and the expectations that kept her from seeing her own worth. This rebuilding season isn't glamorous, it's messy. It's full of tears that leave her pillow wet at night. It's full of questions that don't have easy answers. But with every sunrise, she finds a little more strength to try again. The woman who rebuilds herself doesn't do it because she feels strong. She does it because she refuses to stay broken. Every time she chooses to get up, even when it hurts, she's laying a new brick in the foundation of her future. In the quiet, she begins to recognize the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness says she's forgotten. Solitude says she's being refined. Loneliness tells her she's not enough. Solitude reminds her that she already is. In that stillness, she learns to talk to God differently, not with the desperate cries of someone seeking rescue, but with the calm trust of someone who knows she's being rebuilt for purpose. Her tears become her prayers, and her faith becomes her tool for reconstruction. As she rebuilds, she discovers strength she didn't know she had. She learns to set boundaries, to protect her peace, and to honor her own heart. She stops chasing validation and starts embracing value. She no longer needs the world to tell her she's worthy. She knows it deep within. Every scar, every failure, every disappointment becomes material for her comeback. She learns that what she lost was never greater than what she's about to gain. There's beauty in starting again. It's the kind of beauty that doesn't fade because it's born from pain, from perseverance, from faith that refused to die. When she rebuilds herself alone, she's not rebuilding the old version of her. She's creating something new, something unshakable. She becomes a living testimony that even in solitude, she is never truly alone. God is in the details, shaping her hands to build again, guiding her steps to stand again, and filling her heart with the quiet strength to keep believing even when nothing makes sense. Every tear waters the soil of her growth. Every heartbreak becomes a tool for wisdom. Every step she takes alone becomes proof that she was never powerless, only being prepared. The woman who rebuilds herself in solitude becomes unstoppable, not because life got easier, but because she finally understood that everything she needed to rise again was already within her. Pain has a way of breaking us open in places we never thought could hurt, but it's also the very soil where purpose begins to grow. Every painful moment, every disappointment, every heartbreak carries a seed of transformation. When a woman stops running from her pain and begins to face it, she discovers that it was never meant to destroy her. It was meant to develop her. Pain exposes what's weak, but it also reveals what's unshakable. It strips away illusion and forces her to confront who she really is, what truly matters, and where her faith stands when everything else falls apart. There's a divine design behind every wound. The things that wounded her are often the very things that prepare her to walk in wisdom, compassion, and strength. She begins to see that what once made her cry now gives her clarity. The storm that tried to drown her actually taught her how to swim. When she surrenders her pain to God, it transforms. It's no longer a weapon against her. It becomes a testimony for her. The very place where she was broken becomes the place where she's built again, stronger and wiser than before. Turning pain into purpose doesn't happen overnight. It's a process that requires faith when nothing makes sense and patience when nothing changes. She learns to stop asking, why did this happen to me? And starts asking, what is this teaching me? In that shift, healing begins. Her pain turns into power, her wounds become wisdom, and her story becomes strength for others walking through the same valley. She realizes that her purpose isn't found in avoiding pain, but in allowing it to shape her into someone who carries light even through darkness. Every tear becomes part of her ministry, every trial becomes part of her testimony, and every scar becomes a sign of grace. The pain she thought would end her becomes the fuel that propels her forward. And when she finally steps into her purpose, she can look back and see that none of it was wasted. Every broken piece was necessary to build the woman she was always meant to become. There comes a moment in every rebuilding season when the crowd thins out, when familiar faces fade, and when the support you expected never arrives. That's where courage is truly tested. It's easy to stand when others are clapping, when voices cheer you on, and when hands hold you steady. But the real strength is born in the moments when you're standing alone, trembling, uncertain, yet refusing to fall back. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward in spite of it. Standing alone doesn't mean you've been abandoned. It means you're being trained. Every time life removes the people you leaned on, it's teaching you to lean on faith instead. The silence around you becomes a mirror showing you the depth of your own resilience. When no one stands with you, you learn to stand because of what's within you. You begin to realize that courage isn't loud. It's quiet, steady, and rooted in conviction. It's waking up every day, showing up, doing the hard thing even when your heart feels heavy. In that lonely space, something sacred happens. The woman who once depended on others to validate her strength learns to draw it from her own spirit. She no longer waits for agreement or applause. She stops explaining herself, stops begging for understanding, and starts walking in quiet confidence. Her steps may shake, but she keeps moving. Her voice may crack, but she keeps speaking truth. Her heart may ache, but she refuses to stop believing that better days are coming. Courage grows in the soil of solitude. It's in those unseen moments that she becomes unshakable. She learns that standing alone is not a sign of weakness. It's evidence of growth, because when you can stand alone, you can stand anywhere. The woman who finds courage in her own silence discovers that she doesn't need a crowd to be powerful. She carries within her the strength of every prayer, every lesson, every moment she refused to give up. She becomes her own evidence that divine strength is most visible when human support disappears. When she looks back later, she'll see that the moments she felt most alone were actually the moments she was being built into something unbreakable. Her courage didn't come from having company. It came from knowing she was never truly alone. Every step she took in isolation became proof that faith walks beside her even when no one else does. Disappointment can feel like a heavy curtain that falls between your heart and your hope. It happens when the prayers you prayed weren't answered the way you imagined, when the people you trusted walked away, or when the dream you held onto for so long suddenly fell apart. In those moments, faith feels fragile. You start to question if believing still makes sense, if hope is worth the risk, and if God still sees you in the quiet ache of unmet expectations. But it's in that very place, between heartbreak and healing, that true faith begins to grow again. Finding faith after disappointment isn't about pretending everything is okay. It's about daring to believe even when it's not. It's choosing to trust that there's meaning hidden in the mess, and that silence doesn't mean absence. It's a slow, painful rebuilding, one prayer, one breath, one small act of trust at a time. When everything you built your hope on comes crashing down, You learn to let go of the version of faith that depended on outcomes and step into a faith that simply depends on God. This kind of faith isn't loud. It doesn't demand signs or certainty. It's quiet, raw, and real. It's the kind that whispers, "I still believe," through tears. It's what happens when your heart breaks, but your spirit refuses to stop hoping. You start to realize that disappointment didn't destroy your faith, it deepened it. It stripped away the illusions and forced you to see God, not through the lens of what He gives, but through who He is. When she begins to find faith again, she does so with new eyes. She no longer measures God by her circumstances, but by His consistency. Even in her pain, she recognizes that grace has been holding her all along. Her faith becomes anchored not in the absence of struggle, but in the presence of a steady hand that never let her go. She learns that sometimes faith isn't about walking on water. It's about learning to trust even when you're sinking. Each time she chooses to believe again, something inside her heals. Each time she prays again, even with a trembling heart, the wall between her and hope weakens. And in time, she realizes that her disappointment didn't end her, it awakened her. It taught her that faith isn't about perfect outcomes, it's about relentless trust. It's about believing that even in loss, there's purpose. Even in pain, there's progress. Even in silence, there's strength. When she finds faith again, she's no longer the same woman she was before the disappointment. She's softer but stronger, quieter but wiser. She's no longer afraid to believe again because she's seen that even when everything falls apart, faith is the one thing that can put it back together, not instantly, but beautifully. There's a point in every woman's journey where she realizes that strength alone won't carry her. She's been fighting, striving, pushing to keep everything together, yet something inside her whispers that maybe real power isn't found in control, it's found in surrender. To surrender doesn't mean giving up, it means giving over. It's choosing to release what you can't fix, to trust what you can't see, and to rest in the belief that the hands that hold your future are stronger than the ones that built your past. Surrender is one of the hardest lessons to learn, especially for the woman who's always had to be strong. She's used to being the anchor, the fixer, the one who holds everyone else up. But surrender asks her to do the opposite, to let go, to be still, to allow grace to do what her grit can't. It's a quiet yielding of the heart, a sacred exchange of anxiety for assurance. It's no longer about proving she can do it all. It's about trusting that she doesn't have to. When she surrenders, she begins to experience a freedom that striving could never offer. She stops fighting battles that aren't hers to fight. She stops trying to force outcomes and begins to flow with divine timing. In surrender, she learns that weakness isn't the end of her power. It's the beginning of it. Because when her hands are open, they're finally empty enough for new blessings to fill them. She discovers that surrender isn't loss, it's alignment. It's the moment her will bows to something higher and her peace begins to rise again. Through surrender, she becomes unstoppable, not because she controls everything, but because she's connected to the one who does. Fear loses its grip because she no longer has to have all the answers. She stops running from uncertainty and starts resting in trust. She no longer feels the need to fix what's broken because she understands that sometimes broken things are the birthplace of beauty. As she learns to surrender, her steps become lighter, her heart grows calmer. She stops rushing through life trying to make everything happen and starts walking in rhythm with divine purpose. Every time she lets go, she rises higher. Every time she releases what hurts, she makes room for what heals. And slowly, surrender transforms her from a woman fighting for survival into a woman walking in peace. Becoming unstoppable through surrender means realizing that true strength isn't about how tightly you can hold on. It's about how gracefully you can let go. It's learning that control was never the goal, trust was. The woman who surrenders doesn't lose herself. She finds herself finally free from the weight of trying to carry what was never hers. And in that freedom, she discovers an unstoppable power that doesn't come from striving, but from stillness, a power rooted in faith, sustained by peace, and guided by grace. Every woman reaches a moment when she looks at her life and realizes that the story she's been living isn't the one she dreamed of. Maybe it's full of heartbreak, loss, or chapters that ended before she was ready. But resilience and grace give her the pen back. They remind her that no matter what's happened, her story isn't over, it's evolving. Rewriting your story doesn't mean erasing the pain. It means redeeming it. It's the choice to see every failure as a lesson, every loss as a turning point, and every scar as a signature of survival. Resilience is what helps her stand again when life knocks her down. It's the quiet decision to keep showing up even when no one notices. It's the strength that whispers, "Try again," when everything inside her says, "It's over." But resilience alone can harden the heart, so grace steps in. Grace softens what pain made rigid. It reminds her that she doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. It allows her to forgive herself for the chapters that didn't go as planned and to see beauty even in the broken pieces. When she begins to rewrite her story, she no longer defines herself by what she's been through, but by what she's becoming. She stops seeing her past as a prison and starts using it as a platform. The things that once made her feel small now fuel her strength. She learns that her story is not one of defeat, but of divine redemption. Every setback becomes a setup for a greater comeback. Rewriting your story with resilience and grace is an act of courage. It's choosing to rise without bitterness, to heal without revenge, to love again without fear. It's the art of turning pain into wisdom and wisdom into purpose. She learns to thank her past for the lessons, release what no longer serves her, and move forward with faith that better pages are ahead. With every new choice, she's writing in ink made of courage and faith. She's no longer a victim of what happened. She's the author of what happens next. Her story becomes one of restoration, hope, and strength that inspires others to believe they can rewrite theirs too. And as she walks forward with grace guiding her and resilience strengthening her, she finally understands that her story was never meant to end in pain. It was always leading her to purpose.